Thank you very much. So tonight's topic is, I guess, should really be one of our favorites. It's this idea of pretending and how we've learned to pretend. And it's something that we all know very well, but probably we're not really that aware of it. And I'm sure, Margaret, if you could mute, that would be great. That would mean that you don't interrupt the screen or the noise. That would be fantastic. Rosemary, you know that you can mute everybody centrally, don't you? You know that, just so that you know that for the future, if not this evening. And so I think we all know someone who we've walked away from an encounter with them maybe, and we've said, well, they're a bit pretentious, aren't they? Or maybe we know someone who we're thinking right now, or we have thought in the past that, of their pretentiousness. And it's pretty obvious to us as we engage with them that they're pretending to be something that they're not. And sometimes we call that person a little bit false, a little bit unreal. And so we all have this gift within us, this trait within us, because we've all learned to try and be what we're not. Carol, if you could mute, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. And so I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey tonight, a little bit of a presentation, if you like, of my understanding of how we learn from a very young age to pretend to be something that we're not. And so eventually we lose awareness of this. It becomes a subconscious thing. And the sign that that we're pretending to be something that we're not is something that we call suffering, or emotional suffering. Anytime you're suffering, stress, sorrow, emotional reaction to anyone or anything, then that means you don't know who you are. You're trying to be someone that you are not, or something that you are not. So let me share my screen with you and take you on a little journey. Still getting a little bit of background noise there. So if some of you have not muted, then that would be really good. Shashi, maybe you could mute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
After a long time, Mike.
No, please mute while I'm talking. That would be fantastic.
Okay. Okay.
And then we can talk later. And so here we go. And as you know, this evening's topic is all about how to stop pretending. And this is probably the most common universal mistake that we all make. Before I begin to take you on a little bit of a journey, and I hope it just throws up as many questions as it does answers, as always. And please do put your questions in the chat box, and then I'll deal with those hopefully at the end. But I just kind of like to lay a foundation a little bit to begin with, which is what I call the 4 principles. And so it's useful to have these in the background as we're going through, as we're attempting to understand, if you like, some of the ideas that I share with you.
Mike, you're muted now.
So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay, so everyone else mute, okay? And then there's no background noise until the end. So the 4 principles, laying down the foundation. Number 1, consciousness is what you are. So that's what I'm talking to. That's who I'm talking to, really, is this understanding that consciousness is what I am. Easy to say, but not so easy to realize, because we're totally conditioned to see ourselves as everything and everyone other than simply conscious energy. And that's what we are, basically. That's principle number 1. So I'm talking to consciousness. Number two is any emotion that you are feeling at any time is a sign you are not being yourself. You're reacting instead of consciously, creatively sometimes, responding. So any emotion means there's a reaction. That reaction has its origins within your consciousness. That's the basics in a sense. Number three, it is in the context of relationship that you assimilate the illusions that will ensure you try to be someone that you're not. In other words, it's in the context of your relationships that you learn to identify with something or someone that you're not. And of course, that's subconscious now. We're not aware that we do that most of the time, but we've learned to do it so frequently and it's so habitual that that's what we have all ended up doing, trying to be someone that we are not. So any unhappiness, principle number 4, is the result of this pretending or pretentiousness that we may display. Any unhappiness for any reason, every reason has its roots in this pretending to be what I'm not. And the reason I use the word pretending, because it can't really be any other word to describe what I'm doing as I forget myself, because that's essentially what I've done. I've forgotten myself and I'm pretending to be something other than myself. And so this journey that I take you on is a little bit of an explanation of how that happens and what you can do to restore true self-awareness, to restore who you really are. Essentially, that's the essence of the journey we're about to make. Now, you're not alone. The whole world has learned to do this. Everyone in the world has learned to do this. This is why there is such chaos around us today. Everyone is pretending, but most people are not aware that they do so, or they would not call it pretending, simply because everyone has learned to believe they're someone they are not. So this the key phrase is learn to believe. And belief is not the truth. Belief is never the truth. The belief may point at the truth, but is not the truth. Well, nearly everyone has done this. I mean, I can't be so extreme, so black and white. There are probably a few people around who are totally aware that this is what they've learned to do. And they have got to such a stage in their consciousness that they're aware that what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they're doing is not arising from their true sense of self. It's arising from a pretense that is probably subconscious. So it all starts when you're very young, when you're a baby. And it starts with the influence of the world around you, which really means, as a baby, the people closest to you, like your mum and dad, and like your teachers. They're the ones who teach us how to be pretentious, how to pretend, basically. And then later on, we start to gather friends, or what you might be called a peer group, or it might be the culture around us, traditions around us, the way our society works. They also teach us. They also reward us, congratulate us, encourage us to aspire to be somebody in the world. And that aspiration of trying to be somebody in the world is where I learn to pretend to be someone other than myself. So it starts at a very young age. And it's at that age that when we arrive, essentially, we arrive radiating this very pure energy from our consciousness, the vibrations of our consciousness, our thoughts, our intentions, our motivations, are pure love, young, innocent, open. So we're radiating at those people around us, at mums and dads and uncles and aunties. We're radiating this pure energy. And most of the time we're going goo goo gaga. You probably don't remember this time, but those people remember when you went goo goo gaga and you were so happy 1 minute, but then you cried the next minute. And the reason you cried the next minute is because you couldn't quite work out what was going on. You were trying to work out how to be in this very strange environment, surrounded by these strange people to begin with. And in some moments you were very happy and very delighted to be with them. At other moments, it was a very strange place to be. So you're trying to work out what is going on. You're open. You're open to being influenced. And that influence comes in the form of worry and anger and anxiety, not all the time. There's lots of love as well mixed in with that, or apparent love from mum and dad. But they get upset, they worry, and they're anxious. And so they send these vibrations to you. And they're strange energies that you receive from them because you are just young, open, innocent, and very loving. That's the vibration that you're putting out. And that's what you expect. That's what you are looking for in your relationship with those other people, which in itself is a bit strange. So your sisters and brothers, they have the behaviors of blaming and hating or fearing, and they talk and they behave like that, and they send out this vibration, this energy, and this also comes to you as a strange energy. And then, of course, aunts and uncles, they play victim, or they get upset, they get stressed, they get sorrowful, and so they're sending this energy to you. Now, all these energies, I'm not saying they're sending them all the time. I'm not saying they're difficult energies or energies which are not human. I'm just saying they're sending these energies to you, and you have to defend yourself against them. And that's when you begin to start setting up your personal defenses. And that's like the origin, the beginning of the shaping of the creation of your personality. And persona is in ancient Greece is wearing of the mask. A persona is like a mask. So you have to start putting up a persona to deal with these energies. And that's why we all have different personas, because we all have different energies to deal with in this very young stage of entry into the world. And eventually, those energies are very mixed. Yeah, sometimes there are moments of, oh, isn't he cute? Isn't that lovely? Aren't they just gorgeous, as they look at you and smile and send you very apparently loving energy. Some moments. Other moments, they're angry and they're worried and they're anxious and they're scared. And so you're surrounded by this very curious mixture of energy. And so you still have to build your defenses against some of it, strange as it may be. So this is how your personality takes shape. Your considered responses soon become emotional reactions. And so you start reacting defensively against these energies as you're growing up. Yeah, and education comes into play, and you're taught to see yourself in certain ways, depending on where you're educated, who's educating you, the influence your teachers have. And so they have a role to play in the shaping of your personality. In other words, of the shaping of how you react to the world around you. Then, of course, there's your culture, the culture we find ourselves growing up in. That has an influence on shaping our personality, the characteristics of us as human beings. So all of these, they all encroach on the energy of the self. And against all of these, we have to build our own, in some cases, defense system. And that defense system can take the form of projection or avoidance or introversion or whatever you can use to describe how you deal with the energies of life, of the world, of people around you. And so in every defensive mode, you are unaware of seeing yourself in a certain way. And so you're reacting to those people in those relationships, but you're unaware of your true self who is reacting. You're having to create a persona, a false sense of self. You're having to pretend to those people, to those situations, to those events in certain ways. And so you're beginning to create a sense of who you are in relation to those people, those situations around you. And that can never be the true you, as we shall see. So you create defensive strategies to protect yourself. And this is why we're all so different. Some people, they get very defensive. Other people, they just feel constantly insecure. Other people get very angry. Other people, they're very disruptive in their interactions with others. These are all coming out of a personality that has grown up building certain defenses against the energies that it's been meeting in its younger, more innocent years. And therefore, it's the personality that's emerging from a wrong sense of self. It's emerging from interacting with those around them. And as you know, a relationship is like a mirror. So I just had a little bit of noise there. So somebody needs to mute just for a moment, and we're nearly there. Some people, they're very introverted. This is their defense. They go very quiet and very inside. Some people are very violent. They're very external in the personality that they've shaped, that they've evolved over time as their defense mechanism against the energies coming from other people in whom they're having a relationship. I don't mean a romantic relationship, I mean just generally relationships. Other people, they worry all the time. So all of these ways of defending and protecting ourselves, they become habits, and together they make up our personality. The personality is like a matrix. I often use the idea of the bird's nest, and you see all those twigs woven in together in the bird's nest. And so those interwoven strands of our personality, and there's different strands that are energized at different times in different relationships, but they all make up our persona at any given time. And the origin of each of those strands or habits or ways of protecting ourselves, the origin is always grounded in something, someone that we have identified with at that moment. In other words, the belief that we've learned about ourselves. So remember, relationships are mirrors. And what we see in the mirror of a relationship, what we see in the other person is primarily ourself. It's a reflection of ourself. So if we see hatred in someone, then we're seeing it in ourselves. If we see violence in someone, we're seeing it in ourselves. And so it's complex, complicated, but that's the origin of our ability to see it in others, to see it in ourselves first. And that's how we defend ourselves against those energies. So from this naturally pure, innocent, open, loving being, which is the baby which arrives, totally innocent, we've come to be, well, different for different people. Some people are insecure, some disruptive, some unhappy, some emotional. Some people are worried, some people are angry, some people are constantly violent. We all have different personalities containing these strands, some more than others. Some people have all of these potentially within their persona, but they're very good at disguising some. But of course, they're all reinforced by the judgments that we receive from others. For example, you are so insecure, someone says to us, or you're so aggressive all the time, someone says to us, or you're always down. Why are you always down and unhappy? And of course, when someone says these kinds of things to us, we take it on board and we go, oh, that's how people see me, then that's how I must be. And so that's how I must be. Therefore, that becomes my sense of who I am in that moment. In that moment, that becomes who I am, how I see myself. And so I start to pretend to be the person who's always down, or is always aggressive, or always insecure. Or someone says you're always too quiet, or you're always reacting, you're always very defensive about things. Why are you being so defensive? They're just little phrases that people say to us, but contained in the phrase is the possibility that I will take their belief about what they're seeing in me, I will take it and say that's true about me, that is me. I am always defensive, I am always reacting. And so that becomes my sense of who I am in that moment and in similar situations to that moment. And that's then what I express. So you can see I'm pretending to be the reactive one. I'm pretending to be the defensive one, which are not natural, my natural, innocent, loving, open, pure state of being. Or it might well be someone say, well, you're so violent all the time. Or what are you protecting when you keep saying that or acting like that? I feel as if you're protecting something. God, you're such a worrier, aren't you? You're a real worrier. as my father said to my mother a lot. And so as people say these things to us, we use them to build our sense of who we are in that moment. And you know this because you walk away from the interaction of the relationship thinking, well, yeah, I do worry a lot. I am a worrier. Yeah, I am a worrier. Or I am protective a lot of the time. And so it kind of reinforces what you have already learned to believe you are. And of course, one of the most popular is anger. And when someone says, you really do get upset and angry a lot, don't you? And so you're thinking, maybe not saying, yeah, I am a bit of an angry, I've got a bit of an angry habit, an angry reactive habit within my consciousness, and it keeps coming out. And so it's in those moments that I'm affirming that I'm pretending to be the angry person, but it's not natural. It's not the truth about me. I can say that now because I've kind of done the internal investigation, but it might be totally new to you. And that's why I say you have to walk this territory yourself. You have to explore within yourself and see for yourself that what I would say is the truth of this for me. You have to see for yourself and see if it's true for you. Please don't just believe me. So we start pure, innocent, open, and loving. And so the energy that we're radiating, pure love, innocent, open energy, which is coming straight from our consciousness. But then over time, with the influence of those big people in our life, those teachers, those parents, those friends, the culture, society, our personality becomes a little distorted as we deal with, respond to, and consequently create our personality in the context of those relationships. And that's why everyone is slightly different, or everyone is a lot different. It doesn't really matter. So, but at the core, you are always pure, innocent, loving. At the core, you can't lose that. You lose awareness of it, but you don't lose the capacity to be that. That is what some call the original state of consciousness, the original self, the true self. What's happened on the journey growing up is you've learned to believe you are someone you are not. And you've learned to believe. And that belief is affirmed either by people directly that you interact with or by society at large itself. All you have to do is watch advertising and marketing, and they're trying to affirm a sense of identity They want you to carry that sense of identity so that they can sell to you something that will grow it, make it great, you know, or sustain it, affirm it. And that's what advertising and marketing is about. It's about making you identify with what they have so they can give you more of it. Yeah. And that's why you then learn to pretend. You learn, it's learned. It's not natural, it's unnatural, it's learned. And of course, it's a pretense. It gives rise to pretentiousness. And that's why sometimes you look at the media personalities, personas, and you say, well, aren't they so pretentious in how they carry themselves, how they display themselves, etc. And it's obvious that they are pretending to be someone that they are not. And if you were to follow many of these personalities beyond the glare of the public lights, etc., you would find they're quite a different personality in real life, as they say, or in their unexplored, unexposed life. They're quite different in the way they act, the way they be. So most of the identities that you've taken on to yourself, most of the yous, if you like, are subconscious. Yeah, some are conscious, but most are subconscious, because this has been going on since knee-high to a grasshopper, as they say, since we were very small, very young. We've been creating and adopting different me's and then consciously suppressing them and putting them down into our subconscious. So they're now coming out to the surface in different habits, different thoughts, different feelings, different emotions. They now come to the surface. And of course, most people, they tolerate that for as long as they can, because what comes to the surface is usually not pleasant. As long as you're identifying subconsciously with something that you are not, then you're going to give rise to some form of suffering or unhappiness, or what today is called stress. And so that in itself is the signal that you are pretending. So other people in the world teach you to pretend to be and act in ways that other people, the world, society, approve. They teach you, like family, and they teach you your name, they teach you the country to which you belong, they teach you that you are a male or a female. And of course, that's being challenged today, as we know. Your education teaches you, educates you about history and geography of the country that you belong to, that you should identify with. The job you do has a position that has something that you can also latch onto and use to affirm your sense of self, which is what most people do. Your possessions, your car, that then becomes your way of projecting into the world how well you're doing, who you are, what you are. Look at the labels on the clothes that I wear. I am the label. I am this make, this fashion. This is my identity. And so all the time, you are learning to pretend to be what you are not. The area you're from, the achievements that you have, and all the cups and trophies you have sitting at home in the cabinet, they are me. Yes, anyone criticizes any of them, they criticize me. The team you follow, if the team loses, you feel sad. If the team wins, you feel happy. That means your identity is wrapped up in the team. You're trying to be one of them. Your political views, your beliefs, the deepest level of misidentification is my own beliefs and belief systems. That's why I often say, please, please, please don't just believe anything you hear me say. See for yourself. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here just to explain how I see it, explain how I would articulate it. And then you have to do that work for yourself. And that work involves not learning so much as unlearning. In other words, undoing. In other words, becoming more aware of what it is at the very core of me, what belief system that I have absorbed at some stage in the past that I'm now using to define myself in this moment right now. And that's more about unlearning than it is learning. The information I'm sharing, you might think, well, I'm learning from this. But ultimately, if you do the inner work yourself, then that will be the work of unlearning, undoing, yeah, revealing the true self as opposed to the self that has spent its lifetime so far pretending and not realizing that as it's tried to pretend, it's created suffering and happiness for itself, not making that connection. So how do you know you're pretending to be what you're not? You take things personally. I think we all kind of know those moments when we react because we've taken something personally. And that happens when whatever you're pretending to be is either threatened, when someone says something, insults you, or is damaged, when something damaging happens to the objects, the possessions, the things, or maybe the people in your life, or when something or someone is lost. Now, notice the unhappiness that follows these events. And that means you don't know yourself. That means you are identifying with something that you're not. And when it comes to the loss of another person, then it just means you're identified with that person. In other words, you've lost them. You believe you've lost them. But that means you believed originally you possessed them, you had them, that they were mine, which is, as you know, in cold hard light of day, is impossible to possess another person. It's impossible to have another person. And so you were, as most people learn to do, living an illusion. So it was an illusion that was the source of your suffering. And so it's the dispelling of that illusion that sets you free from that suffering. So this is why we create emotional reactions. And I'm just giving you examples of fear, sadness, anger as the main emotions that we create, believing other people are creating them in us, but they don't. We create them. And the reason for this is I'm identified with, I'm pretending to be what I'm not, essentially. So it's seeing that connection that begins to set you free. Aha, I'm sad, I'm down because I've lost this person. No, you haven't lost them because you never possessed them. So why are you sad? Why are you making yourself suffer? People leaving is real. It's happened. It happens all the time. But why are you sad? Why is your next door neighbor not sad? Because you had learned to identify, to pretend to be them. Yeah. So when you see this, you begin to lessen the level of these emotions. And these emotions are otherwise known as suffering. Whenever we generate these emotions, we're suffering. That's not wrong or not right. I'm not saying you shouldn't or you should. I'm just saying understand where these emotions are coming from. And that's quite challenging for us because as part of our education, we were not taught how to be aware of our pretentiousness and the emotions that arise from that pretentiousness, the suffering that arises. We're not taught how to be aware of that. You know, no one shows us, no one teaches us, because those who are teaching us are not aware themselves, essentially. And that's, again, one of the reasons why I keep underlining. You have to see this connection for yourself, primarily. You know? In fact, you'll forget almost every word I've shared with you about 10 minutes after the end. Yeah. So this forgetfulness of our true self is the greatest loss is awareness of our true and natural and original self. This is our greatest loss. It's just that well, in truth, it's not really a loss. It's only a temporary loss of awareness, a temporary loss. And that loss is tolerable for most people. Yeah, in other words, the suffering, the stress, the sorrow, the emotions are tolerable. We'll put up with it as long as we can until we can't. And usually most people, they'll wait until it's not tolerable anymore. And then they hit the brick wall and they go searching, they go looking for what it is. Why am I so unhappy? Why am I so emotional all the time? Why am I suffering so much? Surely this life offers more than me just suffering my way through it. And so that's the moment when people hit their brick wall. Yeah, and it's only in the restoration of that awareness that you begin to realize what has happened exactly. Now, the underlying purpose of any authentic spiritual or wisdom path is to restore that awareness of your true, natural, original self. You know, that's the underlying purpose. And I use the word authentic quite deliberately there because there's lots of spiritual paths and lots of so-called wisdom paths out there. But their purpose is not to restore your true, natural, original self. Their purpose can be philosophical, it can be religious, it can be a bit new agey, but it's not primarily to restore awareness of your true, natural, and original self. And that for me is the mark of authenticity, is that understanding and that purpose. So if you walk one of these paths, then you will realize there was no loss. You know, that original self exists. And it's not to be sought on the outside. It's not to be sought through information that comes from outside in. It can only be sought and found. In other words, the awareness can only be restored from inside out. So yes, retreats, seminars, workshops, classes are useful, but they can only ever give you clues. They can only ever point you back into yourself. And hopefully that's what I'm doing here. When you realize you simply forgot, you know, that's all you're doing. You just forgot who and what you really are. And in the forgetting, you went searching for who and what you really are, and you began identifying with what you're not. That's the simple essence. And of course, that identifying with what you're not leads to suffering, leads to unhappiness. And so that brings you back. It brings you full circle. Can't take this anymore. I need to, instead of looking outwards, looking at other people, listening to other people, dealing with the energies of other people, I need to sit quietly and go inside and see for myself. And there are 4 practices in which you can do that. They're not really practices in the sense of things to do, but they're more about being, you know, or being aware. They're more about restoring your sense of being. And the first is meditation. You can call it a practice and you can do meditation, that's okay. But really, meditation is you residing in your natural state, you know, in your original state. And so what meditation could be defined as is the cultivation of self-awareness, true self-awareness. You know, in a sense, self-awareness. It's not awareness of yourself that you're going to be, but you're going to become aware of what's going on within yourself. So when you sit to meditate, it's quite difficult, especially to begin with, because you've all kinds of energies coming up, thoughts and feelings and memories and beliefs and ideas, and what happened today, what happened when I was a child. All of that is going to make itself known to you as you sit quietly and take your attention to yourself. And so that's okay. That's natural. It's natural for you to look at those things. But the secret is just to keep looking, not to engage, not to energize, but just to keep looking. Just watch, just watching. Things coming up and things going, things arising, things falling. And so eventually you're very content and peaceful within yourself. And so it's residing in that state of peacefulness. That's what meditation really is. You know? Now, what helps you to do that is regular moments, times, in the interest in contemplating. And that could be the study of others, the wisdom of others. It could be, or it could be your own wisdom. It could be you exploring an experience or an inexperience that occurred in your meditation this morning. It could be you studying that and looking at it and seeing how that's connected to your past or to something you've learned or something you're unlearning in this moment now. And so you're consciously using your consciousness to explore. And of course, this sometimes is called contemplation, looking at the different angles of things, the meaning, where did it come from? Why did I think that? Why did they say it? Why did I do that? And so it's exploring, not obsessively, but just to see with a greater clarity what's going on. That will lead to realization, and those realizations then become something that you apply. You put your aha moments into actions, your realization into action. And so you get the opportunity to do that because the context in which you are living, interacting, is relationship. And so can I apply what I've realized, what I've seen in my relationships? Oh no, I'm not very good at doing that, but I'll keep trying again, and I'll fail many times before suddenly, yeah, I can be still and quiet and peaceful in the presence of this person with whom for years and years I've just found it so uncomfortable being in their presence. But now I know that discomfort is mine. I know it's coming from a belief that I have about myself in relationship to them. And so let me be my true self. Let me be my quiet, peaceful, contented self in their company. And so I might fail a few times until one day there I am. And so I have applied the realization that it doesn't matter who's in front of me, what's going on. My true nature is quiet and peaceful and loving and caring and content. That's my true nature, my original nature. It's always there. But I need to kind of practice bringing it to the surface. And then the fourth, more to do with doing, is in what area in my life can I make a contribution? Can I be of service to others? How can I get the energy going from inside out instead of always coming from outside in? I've spent my whole life trying to get, keep, want, trying to possess, trying to absorb, trying to assimilate. So let me see if there's an area in my life where I can give of myself without wanting anything in return. Now, when you start to do that, you start to discover a different kind of feeling on the inside. So there's no emotion involved here. There's a feeling of fulfillment, a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of generosity, a feeling of kindness which arises. And these are not emotions. These are genuine feelings that you feel when you give of yourself without wanting. As soon as you start wanting, you start creating the emotion of anxiety, tension, and fear of not getting what you want. You start creating that agitation, and that's an emotion in return. So then you begin to see the difference between feeling your natural self and the emotions that arise when you pretend to be someone you're not, something you're not. And finally, and this is a big jump, this is maybe a little bit too big. I'll make it anyway. In the process of putting those four practices into place in whatever way you're comfortable in your life, there's no one right way, no one right combination. In the process of putting those practices, those states of being into your life, you're going to realize three things. Number one, that in the essence, in the core, I am no one. In other words, there's nothing that can describe me ultimately. even consciousness is insufficient. Yes, there's the form of the body. This is not me, but I'm presuming you know that. You've got that. You're aware of that. But this is the closest piece of material matter which equates to who I am, or who I've learned to believe I am. And so consciousness is what I am, but even that word is not enough to describe me, moi. I am no one. Doesn't mean to say I don't exist. Doesn't mean to say I'm not here. It just means that I never was and never will be anyone. Yeah, you know, there's an old saying, you know, someone who's trying to be somebody does not yet know how to be. So if you like, in the essence of everything, I'm just a being, just a being. But there are, most people in the world are trying to be somebody. They're encouraging others to try and be somebody, to be successful, to be the achiever, to be the go-getter, to be somebody. So they'll be recognized and applauded by the world. So it's the person who's trying to be somebody who does not yet know how to be. So being is the essence. I am the being. The second thing you might realize, I'm not saying you will, is I have nothing. I have nothing. No thing is mine. What I believe I have today really possesses me. And this is why there's this old saying, I don't have any possessions, my possessions have me. And you know your possessions have you because you're always thinking about them or protecting them. And you're protecting them because you're identifying with them. And so you are possessed by them. You've lost your sense of identity, your sense of self, in the idea of them in your own mind. You know, the car, the carpet, the house, the family, it's my family. No, I don't possess these people. These people just happen to be around me on this journey, this part of the journey. This object just happens to pass through my life at this point in the journey. I don't possess it, because if I try to possess it, it will possess me. It will consume me. It will shape me. It will confine me in my own consciousness. And that's why we think about things and people when they're not there, when they're not in front of us. You know, when you're always thinking about someone, it means they possess. The idea of them is in your mind, and it's shaping you in that moment. And so you're limiting yourself to what's on your mind. This is why meditation becomes important, because in meditation, you're getting out of what's on your mind, coming away from what's on your mind, and you're beginning to see and realize and feel that you're much bigger, greater than anything that's on your mind. The practice of meditation will help you to see that for yourself. And the final realization is that I'm going nowhere, and I've never been anywhere. Someone's unmuted. Just mute for a moment. We're nearly there. There's a noise. Please mute. Thank you very much. Someone's not muted. Okay, and so the final realization, possibly, is I'm going nowhere. And so that kind of really means that you take your body to the beach in Spain for a holiday, maybe, but you are still you. In essence, you are still you. Wherever you go, there you are. Yeah. And so you're always now here. Yeah. And so this kind of reminds me that I cannot go away from myself. I'm always myself. No matter where I am in the material physical world, I am always now here. And that will occur, that realization may occur also in your meditation. So it's not that you don't exist, it's not that you're not here, it's not that you don't, you are no one. It's not that, it's just the core truth about consciousness, about the self. It's possible to realize in your meditation. But that's quite a jump. That's quite a jump too. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That's how I'm kind of seeing the journey at this moment. Ask me again in a year's time and I might explain it differently, and ask you in a year's time and you will explain it in your way. And that's why it's got to be explored to be meaningful. It's got to be explored by the self. So if you go to relax7.com, you'll get books and commentaries which will help you to explore these ideas. And if you go to relax7.com, you will also be able to subscribe to what I call clear thinking. And so,
Ask a question.
yes, question away, question away. Any question?
Thank
Sorry, could we just if you would like to ask them yourself, please do. And we have Darshini here as well, who will ask them for you. They're written in the chat, and it's sometimes easier to do that so that we can manage it within the time. Is that all right? But
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Okay.
No, I've got the chat box here.
Okay, I was just asking about to help overcome lots of self-doubt and lack of self-trust on my decisions and things like that. Yeah, it seems to be overarching. It's almost like a kind of hangover. Looking for ways of how to overcome that, to you know, sort of grow and yeah, have more trust in my abilities, I guess, as well.
The four practices will take you there. If you're not meditating and not contemplating and not exploring these issues, then nothing will change. If you're not sharing some of these things, then nothing will change, really. And so right now, you're identifying with I'm a self-doubter. So that's what you're pretending to be in your conversation with me. I'm a self-doubter. And that pretense is false. And so it's about seeing that. It's about noticing that you keep identifying with what you're not. You're not a self-doubter. It's not me. It's not my natural state. That means you have to explore more deeply in your meditation. Now you're going to go yes, but on me now. And I'm going to say, no, don't do that. Because you don't really want to know until you sit quietly and realize for yourself that there is a deeper space. What you want is the attention of me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please.
Right, I put the question in the chat, and what the question was I said that sometimes don't we have to pretend to be someone else when playing out a role so as to be more effective? For example, when you're playing out a role as a policeman, I mean, when you are a policeman, a doctor, barrister, social worker, nurse, because, for example, if you don't play out that particular persona, it might be very difficult for people to take you seriously. The reason I'm saying this is I am a lawyer, for example, and you know, by nature, I'm an easygoing, relaxed person. And previously, in my younger days, I used to kind of be
no,
relaxed.
just a second. No, you're telling me a story.
Okay, sorry. Okay, all I'm just saying is, sorry. Okay, I don't want to.
I've got your question. I've got the answer.
Yeah. I just meant, do you have to?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Act a role sometimes to get people to respect you.
No,
Because
no,
as a
no.
policeman, if you don't act the role of a policeman, then you won't exercise that authority.
Okay, so you've got the answer to the question yourself.
No, I've not.
Okay, you ready? This is my answer, and this is not the answer. This is how I would respond to that question. Is that when you're playing the role of lawyer, you are not a lawyer, you are playing the role of lawyer. It's like the actor on the stage playing the character in the play. They know they're the actor, but they're playing the character. They don't lose awareness that they're an actor and suddenly become the character. They're not attached to the character. They're not identified with the character. They're playing the character. Just like you play sport, or you play with the wheel of your car or whatever, you are playing. And so you saying, I'm a lawyer. No, you're not. Lawyer describes what role you are playing for the benefit of others. So a really good lawyer does not go, I'm the lawyer here. They play the role of the lawyer. So it's a difference. There's a difference between the two. And that difference is only known in consciousness.
Mike, hi.
Yep.
Stuart.
Yeah.
Just going to say, every single chat that I've heard you do has been very inspirational, mate. I've been part of the BK movement since 2007. And to be fair, I've listened to talks from many, many people down the years. I live in Chelmsford, and we've just got some new premises, funnily enough, which I believe we're moving into in late summer.
Story. There's a whole audience here. Don't go off onto a story.
Oh, okay, sorry, Mike, sorry. But no, I was just going to say, as a general consensus, your talks have been very inspirational for me.
Okay, thank you. What's the question? I'm just aware that there's 80 odd people listening.
The question I've always put, and I go into the Wands meeting on a Tuesday, is that I believe it's a vibrational world. And that's my simple point.
That's your belief.
Yeah, that's my simple point.
Okay, great. Fantastic.
And I respect you, Mike. I think you talk a lot of sense.
Okay, great. How can we access the recording? Thank you very much. I'm just aware there's 80 odd people here, and I'm looking for any other questions. Please do write them down. Maybe there aren't any other questions.
There is a question from someone who has asked if you can give any hints on overcoming inbuilt defense mechanisms. So I'm keeping the questions really short because that's yeah.
Well, first of all these defense mechanisms are inbuilt, and we built them in over time. And so the only way that you free yourself from them is becoming aware of them, and then realizing that they're arising within you from a place that is not natural. They are unnatural. In other words, if you're always defensive, then you're defending what? What are you defending? There's an idea, a belief, an object, another person that you are defending. Therefore, you are losing your sense of identity, your sense of who you are in that person, in that object, in that idea. And you've learned to believe that, oh, it's good to defend this. I have to defend my opinion, to defend my point, defend my belief. Then you're generating fear, because at any moment, what you believe you are defending is either threatened or is challenged. And therefore, you are going to suffer. But the suffering is created by you. It's not created by the other person, it's created by you. And so until you see that, until you see the connection between your suffering and your defensiveness and what you're defending, and the fact that you're identifying with what you're defending, until you see that connection, then it's not going to change. And the only way to see that is to be self-aware, introspective. You know, is to look inside and see for yourself. I sometimes feel restricted in order to relate to people in real life. It's like taking a mask and me taking on my defense on, like I need it to survive. Yeah, that's okay. You know, everything I'm saying is not right or not wrong. It's not good, not bad. You keep surviving. You keep defending if you need to. I'm just saying, understand yourself better, clearer. See where that defensiveness is coming from within you. And then you can change it. Now, ultimately, if you sit in meditation, ultimately you'll go back to that state of consciousness, that most natural state of consciousness in which you're peaceful, you're open, you're loving, and you're actually maybe even going to think to yourself, this is the real me. This is what I am naturally. Or some people will think, oh, this is very unusual. I'm feeling very peaceful and very quiet, very good. Now, how long is this going to last before something gets in the way? And so they're sabotaging themselves. They're knocking themselves out of it. Yeah. And so just take it from me that in the very core of your being, there is your natural, loving, peaceful, gorgeous state. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to many of the experts. They won't tell you this, but you have to go in and see for yourself, feel for yourself, affirm for yourself. And if you don't do that, then that's your choice. Always your choice. You are free to make that choice or not.
Like, we have a really interesting question. So this is something someone wanted to know. How can we advise our kids on this topic? I think that's really interesting, because how can we break it down into something that's more accessible or something that's simplified, perhaps?
The only way to help kids is to show them, not to teach or tell or control them, not to worry about whether they're picking out the wrong lessons or not, but is to actually show them to be free, to be loving, to be open in yourself. Yeah, and so when you are that with them, that's what they'll learn from you. That's what will remind them that that's what they are. That's what helps them. And so it's only by working on yourself that you can help them, assist them. Otherwise, if you're trying to fix them or worry about them, then they pick up that energy. As someone said earlier on, the vibration, they pick up that vibration. And that then becomes something that they latch onto. Oh, mum is always angry, that must be good. And that becomes subconscious. And subconsciously, I'm always angry. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be angry. Yeah, and I think that's okay, because mum was like that. And so if mum is peaceful and loving and open and very natural, very easy, then that's how the child will grow up in that company, if you like. If I don't strive to be someone, then where does this sense of achievement, purpose come from? Well, this depends on what you want to achieve, first of all. Do you want to achieve something in the world? Have you got ambitions in the material world? I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you have an achievement that you want to get to in the world, then when you arrive at that achievement, yeah, there'll be a moment of happiness. When you achieve, the applause will be there, there'll be the recognition will be there, but in 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, doesn't really matter, it'll be gone, and you will be left feeling empty again. Because achievement in the material world is not going to give you a sense of satisfaction or fulfillment that is sustainable. And this comes back to purpose. What is our purpose here right now in this moment? You know, again, if you externalize your purpose in the material world, there'll be momentary moments of achievement, of getting there, of serving your purpose. There'll be moments, but it won't be sustainable. the primary purpose for each one of us at this time now is internal. And the purpose is to be myself. If there's any purpose in the world out there, it's to help, to give, to serve, to find ways to give myself to others at a physical level. I don't mean a Hollywood level when I say that. But internally, the purpose, we have a purpose now. If there is a purpose now, then it is to be myself. And that's the hardest thing in the world. It sounds easy, but it's the hardest thing in the world, because there is all that conditioning, all the layers of programming, of learning, of teaching that I've absorbed as I've grown up. And so it's about seeing that and casting it off and suddenly being myself, being my pure, open, loving self. And so that is the purpose. And when you have arrived at that, then everything else falls into place. Everything else falls immediately into place. The outside and the inside falls into place. But remember,
could you please put your website details in the chat, please?
Oh yes, okay. If we are loving and open to our kids, doesn't listen to, and our kids don't listen, what steps could we do? If the kids don't listen to what you're saying, then if you want someone to listen to you, including your children, then you have to listen to them. Yeah, and you can experiment with this. If you listen to them, they will listen to you. Yes. The reason the kids are not listening to you is because you're not listening to them. You're not hearing what they're saying, not just their words, but you're not hearing what they're feeling. You're not hearing what they're going through. You're not sensing where they're really at. And so listen to them and they will listen to you. But you need to be patient and you need to be non-controlling in that process. Not listening to them because if I listen to them, they'll listen to me. Oh, I know, this is a clever game, isn't it? No, they'll pick up that vibration from you of manipulation, really, which is a form of control. They'll pick it up and they will not respond ultimately. Yeah, and so it has to be a genuine listening. You really care, a really caring listening. I used to feel very open, expansive, and free when I was very young. Yeah, we all did. I have a few memories of this. Yes, we all have. I was hit and shamed a lot as a child, and it has left feelings of shame, unworthiness, and fear. I would love to be a singer, but hold myself back. Is singing giving of myself? It can be. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, is in the beginning, you're probably going to take from those who listen and applaud. You're going to use that applause to build your sense of self. You're going to use that attention that you get from singing to build your sense of self. But ultimately, the great singers, they sing to serve. They sing to help, to awaken others, to help others see the beauty in what they are singing. Not to get the applause, not to get the attention, not to get the money, not to get the fame and the name, but they sing. It's a form of service. And so it's necessary to go through the process, maybe, let's see, that you might start off by wanting something back, but then you realize this is empty. This is what happens to many artists. They go through this stage of being an artist to get fame, to get position, and then they realize it's empty. And that there's a moment, a crossover moment when they're, oh, wait a minute, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this really to help them see the beauty in the art that I have the fortune of creating for the benefit of them. Yeah, and so there's a changeover, there's a turnover, but it's different for different people. This feeling of unworthiness and shame and fear is there within all of us now. It's because we've all been programmed. We've all been programmed to identify with what we're not. And as long as you identify with what you're not, whether it's your football team or the body face you see in the mirror, then you're always going to make yourself small and you're always going to see yourself as unworthy in some context, in some relationship. You're always going to do that. And then once you've done it once, you'll do it again, you do it again. And it becomes a habit. So it becomes a strand in your personality. So it becomes your personality, your persona that you take out into the world. And so it's very hard to shake off unless you go through it in your meditation, in your awareness, and you touch, you taste, yeah, what's beyond that strand in your personality, what's beyond that layer in your persona that's been created sometime in the past, has become a habit, but there's something deeper within you. And that's what I'm kind of pointing you at here, is have a look inside, get inside, give yourself a chance to be more aware of yourself, your true, natural, open, loving self. Be more aware of that. And gradually, wow, there's something bigger here, something greater here. There's something beyond, yeah, these little limited thoughts that I'm having. And suddenly you start thinking differently, you start feeling differently.
Like, there are several questions that ask about trauma, and the question really is on how can we overcome past traumas, especially when they shape our defense mechanisms.
Okay. Yeah, they've played a huge role in shaping, or how we've shaped ourselves, really, is the trauma. And we've all been traumatized to some degree or other. In other words, we've all violated ourselves, which is what trauma is. It's like a violation. And we've all violated ourselves by identifying with what we're not. And so we've been told that we're just what we see in the mirror. And that's not true. That's a violation of consciousness. To learn to believe that I'm just this small, limited, physical entity. The learning of that belief is traumatic to consciousness, which intuitively knows what is true. That consciousness is what I am, and therefore much bigger, much broader, much deeper than any limitation that might be placed on me by believing that I am just this physical form, or that object, or that team, or that family, or that belief system, or whatever. These are all violations. These are all traumatic. But of course, we don't experience them as traumatic because everyone else seems to identify with these things, especially as we watch the world, as we watch the media reporting on what's going on in the world. We see these people identifying with their nationality, identifying with how they look, identifying with what they've bought or what they own, or what, and so these are all traumatic. They don't realize it, but they're traumatizing because they're violating the truth of who I am. And this is why there is such chaos in the world today. So if you understand this, you know, the fact that we've all traumatized ourselves to some degree or other, and they're mostly that has now gone into our subconscious. And if you understand that, you begin to understand why the world is so chaotic, so violent. It's everybody is disregarding everybody else because they're trying to deal with their own wounds. You know, that's enough for them to deal with. This is our relationship with the environment. We're violent towards the environment. And the root cause of that violence towards the environment, the wrecking of it, the poisoning of it, the toxicity, the plastic waste, the water, or whatever, all of these are forms of violence towards the environment, is because we inside ourselves have been traumatized. Yeah, and so that's what trauma leads to. It leads to violence outside. Violating ourselves leads to violence outside. So when you see that, you begin to understand why people are doing what they're doing, why there is so much corruption in the world. It's because of that. And so you're not alone, but it's a question of going deeper, getting back to that original, true, open, loving self. That exists at all times. Don't search for it. Don't look for it. You know, don't try and read your way or seminar your way to it. It's always there. It just is. It's the most natural thing. This being that I am, that you are. Listen, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Yes, I see a shake
So,
head. Yeah.
We could go on and on, and clearly we must book you again. Maybe something different or a continuation, let's see. But many thanks from all of us, and clearly all these questions coming, it just shows our interest in getting ourselves straight. Straightening up and flying right, as the song says. And flying is the operative way of being, that is flying above it all. So many thanks once again from all of us, heartfelt thanks for these explanations. So very clearly put. Thank you. And may I just very quickly say that we will be having a talk again on the 24th of June. Please put this in your diary. Jim Ryan will be the speaker on relationships of survival. And the next talk will be the 22nd of July. And that will be Dusha Novakovic speaking on something related to karma. And we all have this mysterious karma in our sights, and let's find out more about it. And do please look at our website as well, outreach@globalretreatcenter.org.